I mean, but go on, stay
So
whatever
they
you
had
want
to
to
make
say.
two trips.
I'm with
So
it.
they had to go
Because I'm coming up, I'll say something right
It's like
behind.
6 o'clock.
Now, I've lived here since I was 12. Now I can.
I think they sold real well. I mean, people were wanting.
But let me ask you this, if I came up here right now and punched you in the head and all started beating up, right there. And we're the same age. So it's not like I'm a young guy or whatever, I mean, we're the same age. I wouldn't do that, you know, because I'm all about getting out there. You know, somebody said, Phyllis said, I get paid $150 for every code enforcement complaint that I file. That's not an outlie, bold face, and I can prove it. My billing is very specific. I do not get paid to file code enforcement complaints. I do that on my own time as a citizen in Los Angeles. And that's, and her thing about, oh, well, you can't do anything because you're an elected official. You can't do, you lose all the customers. It's bullshit. My thing went to a completely different place.
It's ready.
It's gone.
Was it NCAA investigation? Find it. There you go. I am very that area, Todd. I was there.
You know the UM's got at least 3 of them in there.
All right.
In the file to put over there.
Moving on. Going to the methodology or whatever.
Well, Mayor, I don't think I'll go through all of it again. I kind of laid out the whole scenario, where we are, what the documents are. So I guess at this point, open it up for whatever you want to talk about as it relates to road improvement. I know Elise is here. I don't know if you want to make any comments.
No, I don't, this speaks for itself.
Okay.
We've already, I mean, the FAC has not really directed me to make any additional comments over and above what we already did in our presentation that we made to you.
Thank you, Mitch. Yeah, Jim?
I thought, at least I reiterate what I thought was our position as council in terms of what we said in our initial supplemental contribution to the letter of, we went through there, the intent of trying to establish a fair basis for the entire town so that everybody in every road had the same opportunity to have their road OJM. We arrived at, or we agreed on $100 max per acre, so that if somebody in E Road wants to do.
No.
Sorry. If the members of E Road decided by majority that they want to make that road OJM, you have the north E Road section where you only have half the property. It would not make it so that the number would be like they have to pay $200 an acre, whereas the rest of the town is paying $100 or $100 So one of the things we have done so far, and we did repeat it in the second year, is to say that that's the max. So that was an expression of fairness across the town. But it was also conditional on the residents of the road still retain their rights that they've had ever since they've lived here, in essence, because it was a practice by the Water Control District, that they have to agree, and the majority has to agree to have the road resurfaced or OJM. Until that happens, the road should remain a dirt road. So those bases, if you will, of what we've either inherited in terms of the right to have your road repaved based on the majority vote of the residents on the road, and that we've tried to come up with a new addition of 4 segments of road, trying to make it establish some kind of a point that says, you know, anybody can have their road OJM, but we'd like to, and the town will step in and try to normalize it so that they don't end up paying twice possibly what somebody else had to pay. So that was this fair and equitable for all people in the town that underlies, that's where that came from. And then the amount which we chose, I think we started at some number, but we ended up 100. With some encouragement by Mr. Mayor, I think on $100, but it worked out okay, and that's what we have today. We also, in arriving at that kind of number was, in my mind, it was affordable what we have in current funds, what we have projected funds at the current rates and the current millage. So that is where I was going, that's where I would continue to go. And basically, that means that I was not interested in adding debt for any purpose, and I'm not interested in raising taxes to provide. I think what we had been providing as far as services and what we were capable of providing, continuing that, we have the wherewithal to do that. The flying ointment, of course, is collecting canal in terms of going forward. And the little wrinkle is the unintended consequences of what we did on North Road, where we have a small section, a half-mile section at the north end of B, that because we put it in, and rightfully so, we should not have had pavement, road, dirt pavement, et cetera. It would have eroded part of the pavement and get down, and you know what I mean, Ojim. And then when they came to vote, they said, well, I already have a road, so I'm not going to vote to have the road resurfaced. I mean, that was unintended consequence, and I don't know that we would have done anything different in terms of that segment. But we might have tried to do something different in terms of commitment by the residents before we did it. I don't know. We didn't really have the time. So that was a small section of road. We're now talking about what we do for our next road, if we do collecting canal. To me, it puts us in a position where we really have to do all the roads in the town. And that means raising some kind of taxes to pay for it, bond issue, or whatever it might be, and debt. And that's, I have to reconsider my support of collecting canal for that reason, that it puts us in that position. Unless we have all the residents of collecting canal ante up, like everybody did on the A, C, and D, the North and South Sea, then I think we need to retake the funding concept.
I would agree with Jimmy on that. I think that what we have to do, more than just relative to that, I agree with everything you said, actually, to this point.
I believe.
And the issue really is one of how are we going to pay for any of these going forward things. One of them being that there is grant money available for roads, for drainage, for water, for different things, especially being that we're a small agricultural rural community. This is something that I've learned from talking to the engineer about something more than what you might think. So, but with that outside money out of the picture, it's just not possible for us to pay for all of this with the existing money. Because of a couple of reasons, one of which was discussed when we had our FAAC. We're really at a revenue neutral point right now. What we collect is what we spend. And what we've saved till now is all we've got, and we can't plan on saving more unless we do raise taxes or come up with additional opportunities for new people to appear, I guess is the way to put it, who are going to pay this bill. And we haven't seen many of those lately. So, certainly if there was to be any debt, it would have to be, to me, approved by, as we already are doing with the roads, where we're having the debt approved by the people who vote on it, and then they're responsible for it. And quite honestly, it doesn't matter to me if when they send their check to the tax collector, if then it comes to the town or it goes to the district. One is the same as the other in the end. So I don't know that we're doing anything unless somehow the town is going to change the subsidy that we've already set. That said, it puts us on the question, that leaves us to discuss what's up with the district roads and what's up with collecting canal. We have put on our capital improvements, D-road improvements that would have to be discussed. And then the other thing is, what about other roads roads that might want to be oceaned in the way that Compton is. If somebody wants that, say Casey Road wanted that, does the town just do that for free, or do we charge those people? And the answer to me would have to be, people are gonna have to pay for it, because we don't have that money unless we're taking a long, long period of time to do it, to Ocean Town roads. Now, there's gonna be additional things. The RETAG committee has come up with a couple different issues recently. One was the RETAG and Planning and Zoning voted unanimously the other night at a meeting to say that they would rather see Okeechobee Road in the hands of the town than the county. They further said they'd like to see 2 roundabouts at F&B Road as traffic calming. And this was discussed, it was presented. It was presented in the context of maintaining the integrity of the town and not having it split due to the additional development pressures that are coming around us. And the idea was if we just make it into a town road, whether we actually get that from the county or we work with the county in an ILA so that we would get the gas tax money, we would be responsible for the maintenance of the road, we would be responsible for the canal, hook that up with the water district to the extent that we can, and just put it all as one thing. That is a suggestion they made. I think that's certainly worth pursuing and discussing with our county representatives, because certainly if you are concerned about additional development pressures, it's the only way to not end up with what we have on Southern Boulevard running right through the middle of the town. As someone who lives on Southern Boulevard, I'll tell you, it's almost impossible to do anything. You sit there, you wait, you pull out, as Ron's well said about the D road situation, it's a mess. If we have that on the other road, you might as well just shut it all down. And, the problem though, as I see it, is money. We don't have it. Unless we're going to raise taxes, which everybody hasn't spoken yet, but I don't think that a lot of people are in favor of. We got to stop promising that we're going to do stuff for people. We got to stop the belief by people that the town has this big wallet and we're going to open it up for you and we're going to fix your problems right now. We don't have that money. As I've said before, we have less than $1,000 per resident. That doesn't get a lot done. So. That's it.
Okay.
I guess the other thing, one other thing, which Keith wants to talk about, is the canal culvert crossings. And how if we have a town road with a town road sign, and it goes from the town road being X road to George's Road, and George's Road's a town road, how is it that the culvert's not? That's the conundrum that we put ourselves in. The logic is, how do you drive from a town road to a town road on a bridge that belongs to no one? The district adamantly does not accept those as their bridges. Yet, we have on the corner of every one of them that, or at least 25 of them, we have a green sign indicating that it's our road that's going on top of it, how about we are underneath it. I think that's something we really need to address. We need to either abandon them or take responsibility for them, but we can't have them in a limbo in which we say they're ours, but they're not our fault. If they need to replace, you gotta pay for them. But you can do it. We could say they are ours. And then we say, and when you need to be replaced, you, the people that take the direct benefit of those, are gonna pay for that. That's not any different than what we have right now with the district, which the district tells you have to pay for the culvert, and they have set up a unit of development for at least one of those circumstances, which we can do the same, or do special assessments and be able to deal with it. It's not that we can't solve the problem, it's just that we do need to come up with some sensible things. We talked about it in the IGC. There's 25 of them, they're $100,000 a piece, that's $2.5 million to replace them all. I think that's their whole capital improvement. We haven't even put one of them on the capital improvement. If we do one every year for 25 years, who gets to get done last? Who gets to go first? If we're going to borrow money, then we'll never have the money. that's where we get with all of this stuff. Maybe it would be nice to have Okeechobee Road, maybe it would be nice to have all these things. You know, I'm sure that people are tired of the dust. I hated the dust when I had my nursery on that road. You know, it was intolerable. I know what they're going through. But at the same time, we just don't have the money. We just don't have it. And unless people are really willing to go probably above and beyond to $200 or $300 an acre a year for the foreseeable ever, we're not going to be able to afford it. So that's, I think, where we're at. So we need to figure out how we're going to, you know, reconcile Waxahachie budget with Palm Beach State for some folks.
Okay, Ron?
Well, let's go back to the money situation. We had this in our agenda pack. That committee brought it to us with their recommendations. And the one I liked the best was number one, as far as incorporate existing town roads provided by Waxahachie Codes Work into a plan to meet the goals and service needs, physical capabilities managed on a fair and equitable basis. Now, a comment was made tonight that we're only bringing in what we're putting out. Well, then somebody that knows money inside and out, please explain to me how we managed to get to a $3-point-something million bank account. And that's just a little bit more than it was last year. It seems like each year our bank account is getting higher. Okay, now,
I'll explain it to you.
no, just let me finish one thing at a time. Okay, simple finances, okay, but we set aside for capital improvements, and we talked about collecting canal. When this council discussed collecting canal, we discussed it the same as we did North Road, which everybody seems to be very happy about North Road getting Ocean. And the reason was that the east and west road, North Road and collecting canal, would cut down on the cost to the residents for the north and south roads, okay? Because the residents are paying for the east and west roads. If they live on South Sea Road, they're paying for collecting canal that was paved, all right? The town paid for North Road. I don't know if they paid for the whole thing or just the sections that we had added in. But the whole purpose was to cut the cost down to the residents. And the district does not have a fair plan anymore, because people that can use another paved road, they will not use a road that they have to vote on as far as putting assessments in it. I believe that Underwood's statement here, and I just got this tonight, okay, it's addendum, all right? But basically he's saying under Florida statute, the town has the authority to borrow funds under various conditions. Provides for authority to borrow to the governing body of every municipality may borrow money, contract loans, issue bonds from time to time, finance the undertaking of any capital or other project for the purposes permitted by the state constitution, and may pledge to funds, credit, property, taxing power to the municipality the payment of such debts and bonds. Okay, I didn't have a chance to go through his whole thing. It would have been nice, but I'll go through it between now and the next council meeting. The deal with collecting canal, another reason why I felt like we justified paving it, we're talking about a multi-purpose trail, okay, and we have to have a foundation. I've said it before. The square of Waxahachie, including 6 Court North, it's a 12-mile trail from A Road to F Road to North Road, back over to A Road. That's 12 miles of trails. And that's what we submitted to the state when we tried to get our grant. And the problem with the grant, I believe, was that we couldn't claim ownership to the easements and stuff. Now, these 2 bills that we just got passed, if everybody's being truthful, they said these 2 bills will take care of that problem that we had with the grant money. And I've always said that, you know, if we can get a grant, if we have to pay 50/50 or whatever we have to pay, if we can cut half the cost down by getting a grant, then we need to work on these trails. And when you go around the square of Waxahachie, you have access for PBSO to come into Waxahachie and respond, fire rescue, and anybody else. And then if they have to shoot down D Road between Okeechobee and Collecting Canal, they've got a short distance. And there's nothing worse than the dust bowl that we've got in Waxahachie when one car gets behind the other. I do believe we have a way that we could, and when I talk about roads, this thing here says what funding level is the town willing to commit to? All right, millage increase, no, I don't support that. Reduction in expenses, no, we need to give the residents something for their money. For us being a town, we need to make it beneficial to the residents, either pave roads, better drainage, but we need to give them something. We got an option of a bond referendum through a dedicated millage. Okay, no, the thing would have been the expansion of other revenue sources. If our bank account keeps getting more and more every year, then we can set aside money. Now, you talk about accounting and finances and stuff. The one thing here in our agenda package saying that which I believe is wrong according to this last statement here.
Yeah, that's all.
Okay, that's old, but well, hey, it was incorrect then, all right? The loan, supposedly, the loan for the 4 roads that were done is $2,600,000. All right, now here's the bad thing about it. That includes $100,000 for a culvert that was put in on D Road that the residents are being assessed for and they're paying for. The other thing, and Cleet was very thorough. He did think about the future. He didn't just build a road and say, hey, in 10 years we won't worry about what's going to happen to it. The maintenance balance, $297,895 for future maintenance on those 4 roads. The reserve for drainage problems. We've already spent some extra money on drainage on these roads because we realized it wasn't done properly to begin with. All right, that's $89,395. You slap all that together and you got $487,290 in reserve for those 4 roads. And I believe, and John can correct me, I believe we're paying like 3% interest on this $2.6 million. Now,
and everybody can deduct it on their taxes.
right, well, thank you, John, I didn't know that. But the point is, this town is paying 3% interest on 2.6 million, and we're making 0.01% off the $3 million we got in the bank. Now, come on, people. I mean, what are we? And supposedly now we were told by management that
We're past the 5 minutes.
I don't even. Hey,
We're gonna, we'll talk about that. I don't think we've ever limited our council members. I don't think we've ever talked that.
the other thing, we were told that when we gain ownership of these roads, that we're supposed to accept the debt. Okay? Now, if the town accepts the debt, then why are the people still being assessed for these roads? And there's no fair way of doing it. The only fair way to put roads in Loxahatchee is for the town to pay for it when they can afford to pay for it. And I'm not saying pave all the roads in Loxahatchee. This plan had a priority. Okay, first of all, how much money can we save by paving a road? I mean, if the road's 2 miles long and you've got 59, 60 residents with 5-10 acre tracts, how much is it costing to grade that road every week? To water the road if we water them? In other words, we had a road policy where we had a prioritization. All right? And then, but the main thing was whether the residents on that road wanted it paved or not. Now, we can eliminate one road, E Road. I don't think the residents on South E Road want it paved, so we don't have to worry about that. But if we had to take one road at a time, D Road is the main street of Loxahatchee. North D Road has been paved. All right? It's the center of Loxahatchee, running north and south, east and west, okay? Or east and west is the center. It's going to be the main street someday. Now, for police to come in from Wellington, fire to come in from Wellington, to go out of Loxahatchee, response time, if they could come in a main street that was paved with decent speed tables and stuff like that, that only improves the health care for the people that live in Loxahatchee. And we start there. We do one road at a time. And Collecting Canal is a major lever road from east to west, west to east. When we have major problems on Southern Boulevard, it's Collecting Canal that they use to route traffic from one point to the other. Okay? And the people are being abused with dust and people cutting through. It's workers cutting through, it's kids cutting through, but they're flying on these roads. and it's uncalled for. But no, we can't afford to do these roads and do them one at a time or stuff like that. We just don't listen to our management when it comes to finances and stuff. That's all I'll say for the road, because I think I'm beating a dead horse.
Okay, Brian?
I think the big question as far as capital improvement projects for period, whether it's for roads or anything else, is the timeliness of how quickly we want it done. If we don't mind waiting, we'll save up money and pay for it as it goes. But if we're looking to do things relatively quickly, we need to realistically look at all funding options. We might not like some of these options, but we definitely have to consider them. So we have to think about how quickly we want to do any capital improvement project. And I'll just let everybody think about that.
One last comment. You say we wait, we've got the money to do something, okay? The longer we wait, if the economy, and I predict the economy is going to come up in 2014, it's going to get better and better. And at the end of 2014, our revenues are going to be the best we've seen in the last 4 or 5 years. Now, also, construction costs goes up with the economy. So what we could get today for a certain price, we will not be able to get it 2 or 3 years from now. Okay, it's going to cost us more, and I just don't agree with that.
Okay.
Assuming that we agree that we're going to do what Ron wants to, and I don't care whatever project he wants to do, the only money that's set aside is in the capital improvement budget. When that's gone, if we did all those projects tomorrow afternoon, we wouldn't have any more money. There is no more money. And the only place it's coming from is raising taxes on the people of the town to pay for the debt if you want to borrow money. It's that simple. And there isn't enough money, and the Financial and Accounting Committee, the town staff, Jim, everybody else up here is aware by looking at the numbers that we are not increasing each year, Ron. You can
Don't
keep
use
saying-
my name, son.
I'm
okay?
telling you
Don't be
specifically.
rude, don't use my name.
I'm telling you specifically because you are constantly putting out disinformation in order to justify your position. If you truly believe that, I understand why you have your position, but you're wrong because on the facts, we are not increasing the amount of money we have year after year. That was the message from the fact committee. If you don't want to listen to them, if you want to tell me I'm wrong, the problem is, Ron, you're wrong. And that is the facts. And you can't, by saying otherwise, change it. If you want more money, raise taxes. It's not hard. But if you can't just say we're making more money, it's going to come from, no, because it's not. They're the ones that told us. I am only repeating what they have told me, what the people who do this for a living are telling us. If you don't like to hear it, I'm sorry. It's what it is. If you want more money, we got to raise taxes, or you got to find somebody to give it to us. I don't see anybody giving us any money. I don't see the county taking care of that traffic light either. And I heard they were gonna, but that didn't happen. It's just like the rest of this stuff. Promises, promises, higher bills, less money coming in, more money going out. That's how it's going to be. If you want to spend the money, let's have a referendum. Get the people to vote. We'll borrow the money and ocean the whole place. We'll pave it all. We'll put in drainage. We'll put in the pipes down the drainage district and bring in the water. You can get all this stuff. 10, 20,000 an acre would be no problem. They'll bring it in. They'll all line up to bring us all the services we want. But that's the reason we became a town, was not to have that. If you want to build Wellington, there's plenty of folks who'd like to do that. Looks like that's what they're fixing to do on Beach Road, really, the way they're clearing it all out. So,
Okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Yes.
and that's probably not coincidental to the impact of the new road that's coming on Beach Road.
One helpful thing, Ron, in the days in the past, we've had a contingency on a number, and it was always the balance of what we're going to bring in more than what we're spending. In the first 5 years or so of the town's existence, we had a lot of money in terms of that contingency category, and that's what accumulated to get us to $2 or $3 million that we had. In the current budget that we have now, for this ending in September, that contingency number is $12,000. And if it doesn't go, if we don't have a lot of increases somewhere else or a lot of reductions in our expenses, it's only, we're talking about $12,000.
That we spent 10
And,
tonight.
and the other point of reference in terms of taxes, taxes, our ad valorem taxes currently, we've got budgeted for like $200,000. To have some money in a current period of any significance, you have to double your millage to get another $200,000. Because the property values might go up 10%, but you're talking about $200,000 going up 10%. So property value is going to take a number of years to get to a point where you're going to have a lot more revenue. So there's two numbers on our budget. Kind of go back and look at history. Is that contingency line where it was always big, and the actual tax number itself, which has come down substantially over time, and it's going to go back up. I agree with you, things are going to go back up. I don't buy that we're going to go down next year as far as taxable property, but it's just that's a piece of our revenue that's not going to grow very fast, even if property values go up 20% a year over the next 10 years. It's just trying to give you something you can go look at from the standpoint. We have a lot of money, we accumulated it in the past, we've been trying to understand, we've been trying to dedicate where we want to spend it and truly in the idea of providing services. But we've got, the thing that I think the Finance Committee hit us with, and we may have forgotten, was you have to be fair, fairly allocated throughout the town. And if we provide a service, like bus service or something like that, that's fairly allocated. You start doing roads, I think that's where we got into problems. And it's just rethinking something, I think, with the knowledge that we don't have a lot of money coming in extra every year. We have a lot of money that kind of sit in the bank. We try to identify where we can use it, but we've got to be careful that we keep in mind the fair and equitable approach to everything we do.
One of the things that I like about the way the Water Control Board did the roads, and I told you before, I did not vote for Irving D. Road, but we had to say it, and as a result, we paid for it. And we all had to go along and pay for it. And I think we've done a good job getting that money reduced. And I think that the people on Collective Canal, we had a couple of them here saying they don't like the dust. You know, maybe we need to look like the Water Control Board did along that area, and anybody that accesses that road ought to be willing to step up and pay that additional $100 an acre a year and to do that road and to help supplement, because I think we have to be very careful. Maybe we need to go to a referendum town-wise and say, is everybody willing to step up to $100 an acre, an additional $100 an acre, just dedicated for roads, and be able to do that. And I'm not talking the ones that are already paying $100 an acre, paying an additional $100 an acre. I'm talking about all of Loxahatchee roads stepping up and saying, we want these roads systematically improved. I am not for going into debt. I'm not for going into debt personally, you know, and I think that is one of the problems with our country. We've got a neighbor to the west that is deeply in debt. You know, there's a couple towns out there around the lake that will never recover. And I think they're hoping and praying that the county takes them over, which is us. And then we can pay the millions of dollars to repair their leaking pipes and infrastructure and everything else.
But the county already has taken over their finances and is paying their bills for them. They're just, So anyway, you know, to do the roads, I really don't want to incur debt to do it. If we have a way to where the people that want the roads done are willing to step up and pay the money, then so be it. That's how we did D Road. I think Clayton did a good job because he did set aside money for future maintenance, for everything else, you know, but we just have to be careful. I am the only one on here that was part of that original board, and we tried real hard not to spend money
And, you know, and there's something about it that I'm getting older and I'm close to retirement, and I found out that the money I've got in the bank is the only thing that, and you wanna know something, when those months when I quit working, it was amazing how fast that it went away. But where am I at right now? I'm back working, trying to restore some of that stuff that is easy to spend and hard to replace. So anyway, I've got Alice, come on up, and then Virginia.
There's just a couple of things that I wanted to add. I think we've had some really good comments, and it sounds like you all are you know, pretty close to coming to a conclusion on this. But I think with regard to what we were told about borrowing money, I believe the attorney said we would have to have a referendum if we wanted to do that. So that, you know, you got to have a referendum anyway. The numbers that are being thrown out there about cost per acre seem a little high to me, because we are paying, it was $100 an acre, but we got an offset from the water control district. You know, so the net was about 60, I think.
And that might be
In round numbers, you know, is what we're paying. And that's just for our road. And if we had to do the other roads in the town and everybody was sharing it, I can't see that it would be, you know, that much. But, you know, the other thing I wanted to, with regard to the finances, what's basically been happening is our revenue is flat and our expenses are increasing. And not just because people wanted to spend more money, but because we took on the function of planning and zoning. In our early years, we were able to save a lot of money because we didn't have the overhead we do now. But planning and zoning has, and code enforcement have, you know, have been costly. Plus, you know, there's other things that you all have added in there. The other thing we did is we produced a millage rate from 1.5 to 1.2. So what we've been doing, you know, is every year we've been cutting our revenue and we're raising our expenses. And that's why we don't have the contingency coming in that we used to have. So it is absolutely true that if, you know, I think, this is just me personally, I think we're on a slippery slope right now with the current capital improvement plan, because we will not be able to continue to offer those services to residents once that $2 million that we have in there runs out. And then you're going to be in a position of either telling people no or raising taxes. So I think we, you know, the idea of a referendum sounds good. And, you know, if you want to come up with, I think staff could work out, you know, some costs, but you need to define what you're going to put in there. You know, and I think, you know, the culvert issue is an issue. Is the town going to do that? I mean, we need to know. Also, something that's not in the capital budget that I thought about today is there's F Road. F Road needs to be resurfaced just like Compton did. You know, that's not in there. We don't have the money for that. And that would be a nice chunk of change. So, you know, we got a lot of issues, but hopefully we're working through them.
Thank you, Louise. Virginia?
Virginia Standish, 15410 North Road. I was going to say this for public comments, but it seems relevant now. In the current issue of the town crier, we have Michelle Damone crying over Indian Trails Improvement District, the burden on the roads, etc. I attended the PMZ meeting the other night, and I believe the numbers I heard were 53,000 residents in the acreage, 50,000 in Wellington, and 3,000 in Waxahachie Groves. Now, I'm going to play devil's advocate here, and some of you are not novices to development and how things really work in the real world. I'm not either, okay? You have an opportunity before you that does not place a burden on the residents or the town. And someone can go crying to Minto also and say, hey, we're a small town, we don't want this burden. You can come up and be proactive and fend them off and have them put some dollars up that we can put on our town without placing a burden. I think you're smart people up there. You can strategize very well and come up with plans when you want to. I think you need to put your thinking caps on and figure out how to get money out of Minto for this town that will keep traffic away, help us, and not cause a financial burden on the residents. Thank you.
Thank you, Virginia. All right. Any other comments? Where are we going next?
Well, I have one comment, I guess, for staff. I'd asked the question that Tom raised, that I guess P and Z brought up. I'd love to take over Okeechobee. I don't know how to do that. I don't know if you have to go to the state and say, do it, or what. And I think, Mike, I even asked you possibly about that.
Maybe an ILA with the county would be a way to start.
We have to vote for county, and the county has to be willing to turn it over to us. It's a designated county road right now. And that's affecting
The
more.
county did turn over A1A to Jupiter within the last year. When they did, they turned over every aspect of it except the control of the traffic lights because they wanted to continue the A1A, through the town. They didn't want them to switch the timing on the lights. But otherwise, they turned it over to them so that they wanted to do landscaping and different things through the area. And it's essentially the same idea. We want to, they wanted to do it in conjunction with the expansion that they're doing in Jupiter. We want to do it in not to prevent the expansion. We want to take it over in order to improve whatever aspects of it we as a town want. But a couple of roundabouts might be a good way to discourage the kind of traffic. And one thing I don't know if everybody is aware of, the county has done one thing that seems to discourage some of the traffic from the west. Because if you're coming south on Seminole Pratt and you get to the turn lane, go to Okeechobee to go left, that turn lane is subordinate to the northbound traffic. So it does not have, if you're coming south, you'll see a green light that goes south and you'll see a red light that turns into Loxahatchee Road, which I think is a good thing because you have to truly want to go that way because the flow takes you on. There's a longer green than there is a turn, and that I think has been helpful to us. But those are the kind of really subtle things that can lead, that probably encourages a lot of people to go on south and hit southern rather than doing that cut through. And a couple big roundabouts. I know it kept me off Pearson Road, I don't go on it anymore. There's that
Long way, yeah.
Yeah, there's that roundabout there that sort of screws you up. I go to the doctor over there, but I don't go on Pearson anymore because it's just not the right way. Anyway.
Well, that's part of our improvement policy, I guess, kind of as an adjunct, but if we, Dave, you're asking where do we go from here, we're not voting on anything tonight, I guess, because we're doing a workshop, but, or at least it's intended to be more of a discussion than a vote. But my thinking would be that, as far as what I stated, and I don't know if we have counsel that would agree with it, that I would like to make it official that we adopt the practice that water control district has used, and that residents on a road, if they want the road, any kind of resurface, permanent erosion, or some other option that we might see down the road, that they have to vote for that. And then there would be an estimate as far as the cost, or actually before that, they had an estimate of the cost, I think. But the town, where we can, and with the funds we have today in hand, without, for example, if we didn't do collecting canal, if we did no more new roads, because what we did in Compton or Selma, however nice or not nice it is, it was intended to be a maintenance issue. And we have other roads like that in the future that need to be maintained. I think we have to treat them as maintenance. So there's a separate issue, in my mind, from methodology that we have. We need to define it properly. There's road maintenance, and it comes in a few flavors, whether it's ozone or dirt. And then road improvements, which I would call what has been done in Loxahatchee Groves in the last 3 years in terms of the AC north and south, and D roads. It would be, that's to me a road improvement, and I would like to consider adopting what we, in other words, keep things as they have been. And if we get into, for example, a collecting canal piece, I don't believe there's enough people on that road that even if they put in $100, how it would come up. To me, it's the wraparound or the aprons that we did on the other roads and on South City that there's a quarter mile each side, east and west of the road that goes north south, that all the folks on A Road, on D Road, E, would have to agree
Have
to, well, F has already got a road going north-south, we have,
You got that huge piece from F to Folsom. That's a lot of distance.
yeah, we're trying to keep it kind of simple, we'd have to look at all of it, but there is a piece, F Road that has so much pavement, I kind of excluded that, but that does need to be resurfaced, and we've already talked about that, I thought we already approved to do that, but that's another day. The concept would be then, those roads on the south east part of the town, south half, would have to each be given the option to vote to pave them. And if they didn't pave them, or didn't want to vote to pave, then that sort of section of Collecting Canal would not be done. Now,
Are we gonna
One-
assess them also?
pardon me?
We're gonna assess them, and then when they vote, they would also probably have $100 or whatever was in that vote?
Yeah, going along with what Dave, basically what we've already done now is, the intent was to give them at least a target, say that we would limit the cost to $100 per acre. It would be, hopefully less than $100, but if we come up to over $100, the chief culprit of that would be 4 roads that went in was South Sea. South Sea was way over $100. So the supplement that we did, we would expand that. I mean, right now, we're kind of on the hook unofficially for $28,000 a year, 10 years, $280,000. But $28,000 a year, and if you look at our gas tax money come in and what we use it on, that can give us, you know, a chunk of change to spend that. If we keep the rest of our money that we have on the capital road improvements, we set it aside and say, that's what we're gonna use to help supplement $100, up to $100, over $100, excuse me. Then we have funds that we could probably redo the whole town if the home residents want it, and we would be able to help with that price. And I think that's what Dave was saying, and that's what I'm saying, and I think that's what we can do, and that's what my projection had been, and we had enough money to do that going forward. I would apologize to Ron and Ryan, specifically about Collecting Canal and Dave, if that was the case, that I at one time had thought we could do that, but I think I'm maybe a little wiser, hopefully. But the unintended consequence of what happened on north of B Road really kind of changed my way of thinking about things. You really need to kind of have that road decide that they want to do it, and then we could, if we want to accelerate that piece and maybe fund it and then have a bond to cover that, or not a bond, excuse the word, have our loan that people are going to pay for, cover that, advance money, then maybe that's where we could step in. So from a methodology standpoint, this is about the Los Angeles Water Control District. And when it comes to other situations within the town, I think we need funds that give us an emergency fund for road emergencies, other things that may come about that we don't have a nice year to go out and get funding and then go ahead and plan a project in that, and so on and so forth. We may have to do some things that would be repaid, but we may have to do it first up front.
Okay. Anybody else? Mark?
Thank you, Your Honor. I try not to make any comments. I want to hear all the comments, and let me just offer maybe some framework. Keith's going to come up in a little while and talk about culverts, which is another major capital improvement added to the mix of roads and other capital improvements that may come about in the near future. But I purposely went through all the memoranda that the town management company had given you that Bill had, because I really would urge that you all take a look at that and read it, and I think we can talk about it another day. I agree with you all. I don't think you're going to solve all the issues and make decisions tonight. I think the idea is, you know, we're getting in, the budget's going to be coming up soon. We're going to start having meetings. I think we're probably going to need a series of meetings where we talk about where we're going for the next budget year, but where we're talking about long term. Now, in terms of the framework, you know, I think, and Bill's kind of hit this in some of his emails, or some of his correspondence, it's a balance between fiscal and service needs. And I think at some point, town council needs to revisit what is the grand plan. And by the grand plan, what I mean is, you need to have this discussion again. You started out as a government-like type community, and I think we have to re-examine this. Is that where you want to continue to go? Do you want to create a greater level of improvements that would then be addressed through a CIP? And then in all the documents, we talk about those issues that are components and part and parcel to giving you that grand vision. Like, for example, structure, town versus the district, and what do we do? Does the district become dependent? Do they stay independent? Bill covers that in one of those memoranda. The funding, all those issues related to the funding. Do you want to incur debt over a period of time to do improvements? Do you not want to incur debt? Do you want to try to somehow create additional sources of revenue, whether it's through user fees, impact fees, anything that we can come up with from a creative standpoint to do that? There's the prioritization issue, and I think you all touched on it a little bit tonight, but let's face it, maybe there are some roads that residents along them simply do not want any improvements. They're very happy with the way they are. I mean, that prioritization has to occur. And then finally, what Councilman Rockett's just been touching on, who pays? Okay, so is it going to be where we're going to seek again to do it through some kind of special assessment, whether it's acreage, whatever the case may be? All those issues provide the framework that I think we're going to have to sit down and talk about very carefully. And I think, as I said, that goes over a series of meetings. You probably want to tie it into the budget. There's a lot of good information for you to digest and go through. So I would encourage that we continue that dialogue, because we're not going to solve it tonight. But I think over a series of meetings, we may be able to develop that vision in terms of where you want to go. And it may be that we stay on the government-like course. I'm not advocating position either way. It's something that, as elected officials, you need to make that determination, and then we go with it.
One of the things, and I was part of that original deal, was not part of the corporation at first until Bill Lauda got involved in it. Okay, I can trust Bill Lauda, if that's what that's on. Whether it was right or wrong. I still feel, one of the things I've been most proud about Loch Country Groves is we're very independent, we're very self-sufficient. And I remember those days before we were in town when we would go to the county commission and they'd say, what can we do for you? And say, we really don't need anything. Or even when the governor called me during the flood event and said, what can we do for you? Well, we were pretty well taken care of as best we can. Give us some capacity at C-51 if you can, but other than that, we're kind of taking care of ourselves. I think we have to be very careful, we've mentioned it before, when we begin to try to solve area flooding or the fact that certain lands hold water. I mean, that they knew that when they bought it. Some of them lived there for a while, and if it's something that the town has created, then that's a different story. But I think that the residents are going to have to step up, or we will become like every other town in Palm Beach County. And I think that will be the danger, that we will lose our uniqueness. I will always be for government light. I think we're getting too heavy now. And so we have to be careful with that. And those are some of my thoughts. So anyway, all right, shall we go on to Keith? And I'm anxious to look forward to some of these, polypaving, some of these other maybe options that are out there that we might have.
I gave you gorillas not years ago.
I know, there was gorilla stock, road oil, and there was just now poly pavement. If we get Disney involved, Mickey Mouse something, Okay.
For the record, Keith Harris, 2580C Road, Chair, Roadway Equestrian Trail Greenway Advisory Committee, member of the Planning and Zoning Board. Tonight I address council as a private citizen, and I have one housekeeping chore first. The report or study that I have submitted to you talks about a specific 25 crossings. Last month, 27th North and D Road was removed from the gas tax map, so this presentation can only refer to 24 crossings. I will try to answer your questions that you may have at the conclusion of this presentation. Many citizens of our community use roadway canal crossings to leave from and return to home each day. The crossings are an integral part of the town's infrastructure. The January 22nd study before you questions ownership, includes a listing of some 47 roads served by 24 specific crossings, and contains photographs of each of the crossings. The study suggests specifications for future crossing replacements to accommodate large vehicles such as fire trucks, RVs, waste pro vehicles, horse trailers, and the like. The report does indicate that the statistics are not confirmed. I ask you to consider the following scenario, which can occur at 6 of these 24 specific crossings. A crossing requires replacement. A property owner on one of the roads that branches off from the road containing the failed crossing asks, why do I have to contribute to replace a crossing located on another road of which I do not live on? The town indicates current policy is repairs and replacement of crossings are funded by others. If you use it to gain access to your property, you contribute to the replacement cost. When I first started the research for the study, Mr. Yohe, the Water District Administrator, suggested replacement costs for a crossing of $70,000. I had that amount confirmed by George Perez, who has constructed several crossings in town. Mr. Yohe stated at the IGC meeting of April 23rd that the Water District estimate to replace a crossing is more like $100,000. 24 specific crossings at $100,000 each is a sum and amount of $2.4 million. The tens of millions of dollars as suggested by Mr. Yohe in last Friday's Town Crier article was for all the crossings. There are 24 specific crossings with road name signage. A lot of them are listed as town roads making intersections with another town road. Individually, these roads may serve as many as 59 properties and as little as 3 properties. Depending on which of 24 crossings the property owner lives on, you might have to contribute as much as $34,000 to replace that, or as little as $1,700 to replace the crossing. Now, during the April 15th Town Council meeting, it was stated by Town Council that if the road is on the gas tax map, the town considers the road as one of public use. The town has a fiscal policy Council adopted, which states that the town will provide funding for public services on a fair and equitable basis and will not discriminate in providing such services. These 24 crossings that I've been referring to occur on roads highlighted on the town's gas tax map. I wish to thank the town crier for their article on culvert conditions, for the article addresses a life safety issue. Quote, many of them have a lot of age associated with them, Ryan said, adding that based on comments by Councilman Ron Gerald and Supervisors Don Whiting and Dave Demarais, who are all active or retired fire personnel, it is questionable whether these are passable by large vehicles such as fire trucks. Unquote. The policy requires an equitable revision. I respectfully request the council to revise the town policy to fund repair and replacement costs of crossings that occurs on roads claimed by the gas tax map. Replacement and/or replacement costs of crossings occurring on roads not claimed by the gas tax map are to be funded by others. And I offer the following for the consideration of the council. First, annual inspections to be performed on all crossings occurring on roads highlighted on the town's gas tax map to coincide with the town's annual review and revisions of the map. The inspections will offer you a perspective required for the development of a long-term replacement program. The last known inspection was some 14 years ago when the Water District had a detailed study performed in the year 2000 by an engineering firm. Secondly, the establishment of an annual town budgetary line item for crossing repairs and/or replacements for the amount of $100,000 as furnished by gas tax revenue. This will provide the town available funds to expeditiously respond to a crossing replacement in case of failure. It is my understanding that our town contains some 7,800 acres. Theoretically, more likely you want to do it through a referendum, the town may place a one-time special assessment for each crossing replacement in the amount of $15 per acre to all town property owners in order to recover the funds. And a final note, $2.4 million. One's first thought may be to reduce the sum by reducing the number of roads or crossings from the gas tax map. That rationale is counterproductive, as a result will reduce the gas tax revenue. Gas tax revenue furnishes the seed money required to qualify for dollar-for-dollar grants. Grant program funding may reduce roadway canal crossing replacements as much as 50%. In other words, buy one, get one free. Mr. Mayor, members of the council, thank you for your time. Thank you for your attention.
Keith, I've got some questions for you.
Sure.
Anybody else got any?
Go ahead, start off.
Keith, was this submitted by the Red Tag Committee? In other words, what was the consensus on the Red Tag Committee as far as these culverts are concerned?
I prepared this document and submitted it to town management on January 6th to be placed on the agenda. Town management mistook it to be placed on the council's agenda. We did not have a member of council to sign on it, and he let it go. I pressed him about it. It was placed on the February meeting agenda. When this this issue was placed in front of the committee did not know which direction to go with it, how to handle it, and said, we're an advisory committee, the council has not asked us to look into this yet. And I immediately withdrew it because it is a sensitive issue and it needed proper and serious thought. And the committee at that time was not prepared to discuss it.
All right. I'll be honest with you, I was feeling that the Red Tag Committee was the ones that come up with this recommendation, but that clarifies what I was thinking. Now, just for your information, and we discussed this a little bit at the Water Control District meeting. Steve Yohe is a new administrator. The Water Control District, they have a policy for culverts. We've already established for two homeowners, D Road, where Todd McClendon and his neighbors already had to pay for one culvert. And then there was one other situation where people had to pay for the culvert. The other situation was, I believe it's 148th where Ryan lives, or whatever street that is. The title company paid for that culvert. Now, we had, for the title company to pay for that culvert, we had to accept ownership because they wanted somebody responsible for the future maintenance of it. All right, so that's why we accepted ownership as a town. The Water Control District wouldn't accept ownership, we accepted it. Now, the Water Control District's policy, and I happen to agree with it, first of all, there'll come a time where the Water Control District, if they become dependent, they'll have one major job in this town, and that'll be drainage, water control and drainage. And I think that's what everybody's looking for. The roads are turned over to the town, and hopefully we'll keep them as a contractor to maintain the roads because our assessments are already paying for that. But their policy is that as long as when a storm comes, and we just had our 100-year storm a while back, okay, and Loxahatchee within 2 days basically back to traveling the roads and stuff without any hardships compared to the acreage a month and 2 months later, they were still in problems. But their policy is that we have a storm and somebody's culvert hinders the flow of water to get water off the properties and stuff and to get water out of Loxahatchee. They have the right to remove that culvert and open it wide open. And then it's a responsibility, just like they did on D Road with Todd and them, it's the responsibilities of the residents to replace that culvert. Now, that's where we need to stay. We talk about we can't even afford to pave roads, and you're kind of wanting us to start thinking about putting $100,000 out for a culvert. And we had another situation on Vittix Road where it's not a culvert, it's just a flat bridge. Now I've seen concrete trucks go over that bridge, I've seen fire trucks go over that bridge, and we had somebody come that wanted them to remove that bridge and put in a culvert. And I approached I was on the water control board at the time, and my assumption was that bridge is safe as far as going across it back and forth. It does not hinder the flow of water. That bridge is low enough to where if the water comes up to the top of the bridge, it's only going to flow over the top of the bridge and still stay within the banks of the canal. So the supervisors agreed, no, you don't need to remove your bridge, it's functioning just fine. So that's where I stand on the culverts. This town does not need to be concentrating on culverts. Okay, go ahead.
I would be of the opinion that the water district's policy has been in place for many years, has it not?
It has, and it's been working fine.
Okay, all right. 2006, we became town. This town has gone and accepted gas tax revenue designated for maintenance of roads. You've got some 25 culverts serving 47 roads that are highlighted on the gas tax map. If you don't want to pay for them, I paid for the culverts, I understand, keep the policy. But you ought to think about getting back the lane miles of those 47 roads back, because you're not doing the town work. We're playing games here. We got two governments. This government said one thing, this government says something. I live in the town of Waxahachie Groves. I do not live in the Waxahachie Groves Water Control District as being my main municipal guy as being a town. Now, we can be a town, or we can be two separate things and just go on like we always have. What else can I share with you?
No, that's it. My major point was that your committee is an advisory committee. And basically, I don't think you need to be discussing something like that unless you're directed by the council, and you weren't directed, but that's all I have to say.
Well, we didn't discuss it, sir. They declined to discuss it, and I withdrew it voluntarily. I wanted to bring this subject up in my opening remarks. I brought it to you as a private citizen, not a committee member. I just said that for the record for who I am.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone
Okay,
else?
got Bill Lyda. Bill,
I'm on 11A.
you got 19.
Oh, that's that. Yeah, okay. Never mind. Get rid of that.
Never mind, okay, I give you this.
You also have 11A.
All right, John Ryan, and I've got you for 11A.
John Ryan, 3508 A Road. The bridge culvert issue, something similar to that came up recently when the district was following through on its efforts to clean out the culverts under Okeechobee Boulevard and improve the water flow in the canals to their design standard as part of the response to FEMA on the flood control maps. We went to the county and said, hey, you own the right of way. Okeechobee Boulevard is your road. These must be your culverts. How about paying for the inspection and cleanup? What they said to us was, hey, the culverts are part of the canal floodwater control and irrigation. They are not the county's culverts. Now, we do own the right of way, so if you want to do any work on those culverts, even though they're not our culverts, you've got to get a permit from us. And that's about as confused as the situation can be. But the distinction they were drawing was the bridge culverts are controlled by the district in terms of their water flow characteristics and the specifications. Now, I looked at the district's records on permits, and they really haven't been updated since they began. So you've got a lot of owners that have died and moved away. You've got records where there were temporary bridge culverts and they were replaced, and So you've got quantities of bridge culverts that are uncertain. A lot of the permitted culverts date back to the 60s and 70s, so you're talking about 40, 50-year-old culverts. So I agree that the town and the district have some issues that are likely going to come up. But I did want to bring out that the district looks at the bridge culverts and its policy with respect to the ownership and replacement of them as part of flood control, not as part of gas tax map, because we never benefited directly from the gas tax map to begin with. That is a distinction that I don't think is unique to us, because the county was not at all hesitant in pointing out the distinction to its recent.
Thank you, John. Keith?
Keith Harris, 25 ADC Road. The situation of Palm Beach County and the Water District was representatives of two governments discussing the situation. And Palm Beach County simply used double talk to support a action of avoidance, to avoid funds, which they've been known to do from time to time. I have faith in this council that the council will not take an avoidance approach with the citizens of the town of Waxahachie Groves for roads and the components of their roads that they receive gas tax money for the maintenance of. No. There's life safety issues there. Councilman Gerald was quoted in the paper saying he doubts whether fire trucks can get out there. I know there's a lot of roads out there that you've got 50, 59 houses on, and if a fire truck can't get back there, we've got a problem.
Thank you, Keith. All right,
Just to comment on that, Keith, I did quote that, but I also, the rest of my quotes was that, and I was still working as a driver operator out here in Waxahachie Groves. The rest of my comment was that we do what we call fire prevention. A good firefighter, driver operator, wherever their station is at, they check the road, they check the bridges and stuff like that. And we have a policy to where if we feel like a bridge is unsafe, and we notify the residents of that area, and we make them aware that we will not cross that bridge. The other thing, we had one incident where, and this bridge was definitely, this was a wooden bridge, it was old, very bad shape. But a good driver, you start with the front end, and if you think you can cross the bridge, you start slowly. Well, that one bridge happened to collapse, but he was still on solid ground, so they worked the fire from the east side of the canal and laid hose. But that's called fire prevention, where we make the residents known that we will not cross your bridge. Now, they may not know about something, but if a resident, it works both ways. If you're a resident and you think that a fire truck cannot cross your bridge or your culvert, then you have a responsibility to go to that fire station and say, hey, can you come out and check my culvert crossing and tell me if you're going to cross it, if I have a heart attack or not, or if my house catches on fire. And trust me, they will come out and they'll check it out and they'll run it through the proper channels and they'll advise you whether they will cross that or not. And each shift has a different driver and a different officer. So one officer could say, no, we will not cross it, and then the next shift could be the one responding to your call. And they may gamble and they may cross it, but no, it's a two-way street. The residents have a responsibility to let the fire station know that it's unsafe. The fire station has a responsibility to do fire prevention and know where their fire hydrants are, know where their unsafe bridges are, and know what kind of condition their roads are in. Sorry.
Yeah, Tom?
You know, I think that Keith's pretty accurate in his description of how we're trying to avoid expense relative to the gas tax. Once again, when we start talking about gas tax, we have to remember, Keith, there's roughly 300,000, of which 150 goes to the district straight away. So we only got 150 left. But, and where we would budget, that's certainly something we discussed, and we've been through that as far as, do we do 25 bridges in one day, or do we do one a year, or whatever. But we're real quick to put a road on the gas tax map. We're sure quick to make sure we have that sign there and all that good stuff. But when it comes to doing some work for it, we're not so quick. And guys, that's what happens when you play these games for so long. And we've been playing these games. There's nobody who's got their eyes open who don't see it. Ron's right. If we're going to collect all this money, we got to do something with it. We got to do something for people. But every time somebody comes up with an idea, we got a different thing we're going to do. There's no way they should get away with having the culverts paid for by people who don't live over there. I don't live over there on the other side of that culvert. I live on a road that doesn't even have a canal. It doesn't. I cut the grass on the side of the road because nobody bothers to ever come down that road. So I understand being ignored and has well publicized my issues with the district over the years and their behavior. But nevertheless, people do deserve something for their money. And every time we get an opportunity to spend it, we figure out, can we get in a different pocket or can we not do it? This whole gas tax thing is proper from the beginning. And I really think we should look at these things and we should decide what we're going to do for people. What do they get for their money? Because right now, they're paying it and who knows what they're getting. I know the people on Compton, I know what they got. Once again, I don't know what anybody in my neighborhood got. They haven't gotten anything in a long, 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 long time but a flood. That's what we get over in our neighborhood. But if you know the right folks and you get Tony Mazzalotti to do it for you once, then you got life set up. You get it for free forever. Come on, people. Do you think I'm the only one who notices this? No. This is brought to my attention by people. We got to change. We got to be accurate. We got to be fair. But this won't continue. I promise you. The people aren't going to put up with it.
Okay, any other comments?
Real quick, one thing we do that, well, one thing we're gonna have to ask as far as the culverts and the gas tax revenue is whether it can fall under that. The other thing to think about is I consider it as part of infrastructure for the town, and that is something we should think about possibly taking over because people don't maintain it. And if the town would be more responsible, but like Keith mentioned, doing regular maintenance inspections. And I know I've never checked my culvert every year, every 5 years. So we should think about that down the road. That the problem isn't going to go away. And I know Keith wasn't talking about every single culvert. He was talking about the culverts on town roads, not private culverts. So there is a slight difference. So we do have to think about that.
Well, the only thing I've got, and I agree, I've watched the transition. I was out here when Sam Edwards was the manager of the Water Control Board, and if you knew Sam, and you bought land on the other side of the canal, and you always bought it when land on the non-canal side was $9,500 an acre, where you could buy it for $7,500 an acre on the other side, or when it was $6,000 an acre, like when we came out, it was $4,000 an acre on the canal side. And if you knew Sam, he would come out on a Saturday and bring a front-end loader and drop a culvert in and push some dirt in, and you had access to your property. And it only cost you the $1,000 for the culvert. And maybe what we need to do is readdress and somehow come up with a standard for a culvert. I think that the location in our district, I think you can get by with a smaller culvert at the north end. I think you can get by, you have to have a bigger culvert at the south end. And maybe the first step is going to be reducing that $100,000. because I can't see how it costs $100,000 to put a culvert in there when we know, everybody talks about, well, we have to have engineering. You know the elevation of the water, measure from it. And to put a culvert in and put some riprap on the side, I don't see where it's $100,000. And I think maybe if we put it out for bids and got some people from here, maybe we'd get some more reasonable. If George says 75,000, I think he's closer to the truth. And maybe we can get them for 60,000, especially if we pull a deal with some culvert company and we say, we're gonna go with your culvert. So what can you give us for, 10 or 20 culverts, and then buy them and set them aside. And then as we replace them, now we've got the culvert and we drop it in. I don't know, but it's just something that I think we can look into in the future. We have some responsibility. We collect the gas tax money on it, we call it our road, we need to do something about it. Keith, do you have something to add?
Just a quick thing. Mr. Perez gave me a very candid answer. He said, we can do these culvert bridges for a lot less. It just depends on the design and the specifications.
Exactly right.
Like any structure that you build. Another point. These roadway canal crossings have a section of pipe. It diverts water from one side to the other. It's covered with fill. The fill is kept in place by rock.
Rock riprap, yeah.
Town has been paying, and is getting ready to do one on Sea Road up by 25th place, my property, a drainage culvert. It's just a smaller version. It's less rock, it's a smaller diameter pipe. Now, what is the problem? We're a town, we're a town served by a water district. We're not, for convenience, saying, oh, we're no longer the government. The water district is. It doesn't fly anymore.
Okay, moving to new business, debt issue in the charter.
Well, we kind of addressed this to some extent in the previous discussion. It's just a question if you want to go into any more specificity at this point in time.
No, and I agree, but bottom line is, we're going to need a referendum, right, or something?
Well, yeah, I mean there's, if you ever need me to give you a more definitive analysis, I will, but I've talked with Bill and we're on the same page.
We don't have to spend more time on it. I mean, I think that's where
We're doing a new business item. It wasn't in here, but maybe we could discuss this for the summer in the second meeting. We don't have anything that anybody has brought up yet as far as second meetings in the summertime, and if it would be at all possible to not have a second meeting in June, so we can plan vacation for July, and that way we have some time saved up for the budget process that's going to come in August. I'd like to ask that we not have a second meeting in June and July.
Okay, everybody all right with that?
Second.
I want second.
Okay, let's vote on it.
But Ron and I are on the same side. This is a good issue.
Well, all the things that we have come up with, we jam-packed in one meeting, when we have no second meeting. If we don't have something that needs to be discussed, or we don't have to use that second meeting, fine, but I can't think that far ahead and think there's something that we may get a second meeting for. I'd like to plan up to, but maybe.
For purposes of planning, let's not say that, let me say this. I'd like to say that if somebody doesn't attend the second meeting, that's an acceptable excuse thing as far as the council's concerned. So everybody could go with that, then if we have a second meeting and people show or don't, then they're okay, but they're not gonna get in trouble.
At each council meeting, beginning of the month,
Schedule
assess whether we need a second meeting.
vacations, we're under
That's
first.
fine.
We can't decide on July right now, we told 3 weeks or 2 weeks before, if I show up on July 4th and you cancel my vacation because you want me to be here. That's what I'm trying to do, trying to schedule.
Okay.
And what Tom's saying is basically, I think you would always have enough for a forum, but we want it to be an acceptable excuse. Those 3 consecutive misses, you can get relieved of your.
If you're not coming, I'm not coming.
But no, that's not asking too much, This thing about all 5 of us have to be here, only time we need 4, I'm sure we ought to make it that. But no, I think we could
All right,
come to a consensus.
let's try to do away with the second meetings in June and July. And, yeah.
It's just, the one thing I asked Mark about was the budget meetings, whether you can get away with only having 1 meeting a month and adopting your tentative budgets and assessments before August 4th. That would be the,
We might need to do one special budget meeting maybe.
All right, well, then if we, okay, I don't know what's on the agenda for this morning. All right, moving to closing comments, Bill Lauda. 11A.
I didn't do too well in math.
Yeah, wait a second.
You were doing calculations the other day.
Anyway, I know, Bill Lauda, E Road, a couple of things, I went through these quickly. On the gun shop thing, if you have a gun shop retail and you got a gunsmith that wants to test fire it, you're gonna run into any problems, just something to think about. Not with a range in the shop, just test firing. Virginia's idea with making a deal with Minto brings me back to a joke I've used before. Beautiful girl, will you go to bed with me for $1 million? Oh, yeah, absolutely. How about 20? What do you think I am? Okay.
We already
Don't get into bed with the devil. Okay. Absolutely. No to any increases on Minto. Join notaminto.com if you want to. Write letters. Bug the council, or the commission rather. Emails, phone calls. Go visit them. Put signs up. Blow the bridge. No, wait a minute.
Don't spray paint their signs, huh?
Do what?
Don't spray paint their signs like they did the other day?
Spray paint what signs?
All the Minto signs, they sprayed a no to Minto and Locks Life on.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. I didn't think so. I didn't know.
Sprayed in, but it was not.
Other thing, Fleet Standard Culvert. If you want to see what the real code that he came up with, I was amazed when they put the second culvert north of Collecting Canal on E Road. Take a look at that culvert. Going over to the place that 2 horses on the electric fence. Take a look at that culvert and the approach and the buttresses and they stopped the water flow on both sides. They dug way down, laid rock way down in there before they put the culvert in. It's an amazing engineering thing. I mean, I thought Ernie was back.
Where's it?
Second culvert north of Collecting Canal on E. It's amazing. It's an amazing. And if he brought that in for $100,000, no way. That had to be much more than that. It was an amazing job, and I went, what are you doing? He said, well, that's what the engineer told us we had to do. And it was just to get water from there to there. I mean, it was, anyway. But anyway, no to Minto and leave them alone. Greed, not need.
Thank you. Virginia Standish.
Virginia Standish, 15410 North Road. As I said, I originally had intended on bringing this up at the end. And let me be clear, I signed the No to Minto petition. Okay, I am not for 6,000 people, Mr. Lauder. All right, what I'm saying to you is common sense. When there's money on the table and you can keep traffic out of your community, you need to ask questions and you need to find out if there's money available to you to protect our community. I'm not saying you make a deal with the devil. I'm saying you find out what's available to you, what you can get out of the situation, and you protect the community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, moving to
No
attorney. All right, council members.
Thank you all for coming. Be safe going home.
Okay, Ryan?
Thanks for coming and go eat.
Okay, good.
I had a few comments. One, I wanted to know if the council can direct the town attorney to explore Palm Beach County on taking over Oakland and specifically some future expansion. If we don't know what we can do there without asking, then I'd like to go ahead and have if that's the approach would be the right avenue to take, we have our attorney contact the county and have some dialogue on, from a legal perspective. Would that be something you could do, or would that be something that makes sense for our legal?
Well, I'm not sure, I mean, there's a legal mechanism to do it, I think the decision's probably not legal. Decision's probably more policy. Maybe it's best if Mark talks to the county administrator first and determines as a policy issue, where we need to go from there, and if he makes any roadblocks or anything like that, I can deal with the county attorney's office and to get that moving forward, get an answer.
Well, the reason I ask is because I don't like to load more things onto Mark's shoulders. And I don't mind having your office do the work if it's something you can do instead of having Mark have another task.
Well, mine would be limited to talking with the county attorney's office, and I think they would tell me that that's something that needs to be discussed with the county.
Well, that's what I asked you.
Yeah, that's.
I get your information from you as far as what you think could be done before. So we're not gonna look at that right now. I would like to, I guess, I don't know, Mark, if something that someone either on your staff or if you have to do it to find out who we would talk
Not a
to.
problem.
I mean, ultimately, what I would like us to be able to do is have a two-lane country road that we maintain, we control it as far as it doesn't get expanded. And, so, I don't think that Minto is interested in us controlling that road to 2 lanes or reducing it, keeping it to 2 lanes, because I know they want to use it as a thoroughfare. So, I don't see anybody saying, yeah, I'll give you some money and you can keep that road 2 lanes. So, I don't know that that would be a good option for us to consider. I haven't expected. But on the subject of Minto, we as a town, really very quiet on our position. I don't even know if the council has a position relative to the Minto's expansion. I'm kind of, unfortunately, I kind of feel like I have to accept what they had been given from state statute. But I don't agree with any of their expansion. And I don't hear anything out of anywhere that says Waxahachie Groves, it goes on record to say we do not support their expansion. I think we need to do that. Or if the council doesn't, that's fine. But we need to do that. And I'd like the council, if we can draft, we have to draft a resolution for next meeting, whatever it might be, we need to step up with at least Indian Trails, because they seem to be pretty adamant. I like the idea of them trying to restrict some of the road traffic. I'm not sure how they're going to do that, but maybe Bill's concept of blowing the bridge is a good one. But even though I didn't agree with it when we had it in another application. But I'd like the council to take a position and we put it in the paper and this is what we say. I know we've had brief conversations a while back and I know we can't fight the guys that have the money they have as far as trying to fight them. I'm not trying to fight them, I'm trying to steer and influence the county to understand that this town, and I presume most of its residents, are against the idea of the expansion. I'm sure they don't really like Minto putting in 2,900 approximate homes, but we can always, of course, determine whether there's any reluctance and objection to that number. But we have really not. I mean, I see people out in the corners getting, petition signs. We're not out in our corners. Nobody in our town is doing anything.
Oh, yes, we were.
But I know you're doing something, but I don't know
Dina, Sharon.
that there's people on the corners. I'm not seeing anybody on the corners with petitions. There was a sign that says, "Stop and sign our petition. Tell me where and when, and let's get it published so we get people out there."
People are doing things
Stop
on
it,
it.
when, tell me where and when. Well, we gotta get it published. Communication to the town is zero, present. So I'd like to, if the council agrees that we have a resolution of this draft at the next meeting, so we go on record that we are opposed to the expansion, and the council has to make that decision. The other thing,
To clarify, you would want a resolution of opposition to Minto drafted?
Increase.
opposition to the expansion of the increase. Their whole mission down in the county seems to be, I've got the 2,900 homes in the bag, even though I understood one of the council commissioners had said we don't have to approve something that's already been, something that's like, it seems to suggest we don't have to approve the 2,900 homes. Well, I don't hold any hope in that not happening. But we should be on record, and we should be able to publish that we'll have people on corners, you know, you want to sign a petition, you want to come out, let's get it out there, and let's put it in the paper, or let the town pay for an advertisement that says we're gonna be out in 6 different places, and these are the dates, and here are the times. And that's another way of showing that we are opposed, but we're really quiet. I mean, I guess I'm waiting for something to come up, but I can't wait anymore. The last item, before I guess the council, before they decide what we're going to do on the Minto, is at the next council meeting, I want us to have on our agenda a discussion of our code enforcement process. And I don't know if we have it in writing. Do we have a written code enforcement process, Mark? That you could say, here's our process that we go by?
We, the only policy that we have is the one that really talked about proactivity, which we put on hold. I mean, remember, that was one we.
Yeah, we don't have a policy, a procedure that says this is what we do in terms of, and I'll use an example of something that I will raise at the next meeting. Phyllis was here and she was not as calm as she should have been, but I understand her concern. If somebody was to send a complaint to the town and say that on my property, in a dwelling that's a barn, that somebody's living in it, and that's all it takes to get a code violation, and an accusation of somebody living in a barn. For example, we need in our procedures, as something I would like to include, some kind of indication of where that comes from as far as, do you have some proof? Do you have something that you would turn to and say, there's somebody living in a dwelling that's a barn, I have something to base that on, not a complaint not a reference by a neighbor that says, I've seen that. You need something more than that. In other words, the whole code violation process. If you can see it, fine, you can say, this is what I see. But if you can't, and I've been to that property, I spent a couple hours on that property. I looked in a barn. It is a barn. It used to be a house. And there's documents that came, the county made Phyllis do certain things to that structure so it's not considered a house. Then they actually got money from either FEMA or some other funds that they built another house for it because of the damage that was caused by a storm. And she has a home that's much like our homes, but that's what she lives in. The structure that's a barn is in fact a barn, and if you happen to have a cot in a barn, or you happen to have running water in a barn, it's very common in my history, my knowledge, that if you have some kind of an animal that's in your barn, a horse that might be sick, you might spend the whole night there, you might spend the whole week there, because you're babysitting, you're watching them, you're trying to care for them. So if somebody's sleeping in the barn, in my mind, is common, especially in Loxahatchee Groves. But somebody living in a barn is a different thing, and the whole process of how it seemed to play out, I'm not happy with it. And I don't know the council if they were given, and they're given a package of stuff, if they would actually spend some time, sit and listen to Phyllis, and have her show you what's going on and what she's seen and gotten in terms of correspondence, I don't think anybody in council, my guess, would be satisfied with that. So if we don't have a written procedure, and you only have some pieces of things that you use as your procedures, then whatever you have, I'd like to see it before next council meeting, and we can discuss it.
Okay, relative to that, to your inquiry, I am going to be doing a presentation, a PowerPoint presentation to the FAAC at their next meeting, which is next Tuesday. If council would like, I can provide that presentation to you at the next meeting in June, which basically talks about the nuts and bolts of code enforcement and what we have to do. I would want to talk to the town attorney because you need to be real careful about putting a burden of proof on somebody who's going to make a complaint. I've never seen that before. Our policy, our unwritten policy, is basically if you're going to make a complaint, you need to file a written affidavit with the town, you need to sign it and bring it forward. Now, that's all it is. At that point, it's a complaint. It's not a case, as some people are saying. it's nothing but something we need to investigate. But I'm not sure how you then cross into, because that could be an excuse for never doing code enforcement, and I don't know if that's what you necessarily want to do. There was a comment made tonight, and I think you all need to be aware of this too. We are not doing proactive code enforcement. I don't want to get into all the specifics of that issue, but the issue was that the town address was used. Well, Mr. Shiola made about a dozen complaints during that time period.
And
He didn't put his.
I know the answer to that, but tell us.
He didn't put his address down because of the fact that he is by statute protected as a fireman.
Right.
What ended up happening was our code enforcement officer, just to fill out the rest of the form, put down town hall. It's not that we're being proactive, we actually had complaints.
Right.
So,
I understand.
you know, that, I just wanted to make sure you're all aware of that, because there seems to be this conspiracy theory going out that we're doing proactive code enforcement and we're not.
I don't have that belief in that Frank's code violations were town initiated or proactive. That's not what I'm looking at relying on in my mind.
Now, at some point, if you want to get the PowerPoint, then that might give you some background. If you do want to develop a policy procedure for code enforcement so that it's more specific, that's certainly an avenue that we can travel. But, you know, I want to talk to Mike about that because I am concerned about it. If somebody really has a problem and you're going to require them to gather the proof, that's really what we should be doing if they make a bona fide complaint. And that I'm concerned
The
about.
point is, if we don't have it written, then it's subject to interpretation as to what's what. You do a PowerPoint presentation to the Finance Committee next week. I would like to see it sent out with a package, and I want to see it next week. I don't have to have it presented to me, I can read it. And you could present it as part of a discussion, but I'm asking you to put it on next agenda to talk about our policy. And I was looking for, it'd be a lot easier for us to talk about the policy if we had it in writing. But if all we have is PowerPoint and some documentation that maybe we use as guides, that's okay. You start with that. But there are some pieces that don't seem to make sense to me when it comes to what this particular case. And so we need to talk about it. And I don't want to take all that time now to do that, but I wanted
Now,
to.
the PowerPoint will cover some of the basics of code enforcement that they'll give you the background as to, you know, how you might want to proceed. But one thing you have to remember, a case never becomes a case, technically, until it goes to a special magistrate. Right now, we have a lot of complaints on file. And, you know, one thing I remind everybody, you know, code enforcement is like a part-time service. We're limited by the amount of funds we budget toward it, and we don't do a very heavy-handed code enforcement, if you will. I mean, it's based, you know, we try to prioritize those complaints. We've tried to keep costs down since this management company came in, because at that one point in time, you indicated that was an issue in terms of our cost estimate. So there are some complaints that sometimes stay on the case file. And, you know, Phyllis said earlier, well, she was surprised because nothing had been done with that, but she saw her name, and so she got upset that, you know, all of a sudden, I mean, so, you know, and we try to get to them, we try to prioritize them, depending upon what the situation is. So, I mean, just things to consider, we can talk about it in greater depth.
Let's see, I don't want to go into that much detail, it was not intended to be, but I want to next agenda, and I would like anything you prepare between now and then, but going back to my request as far as the council agree that we have at our next meeting, some kind of a statement, council, town of Los Century Groves opposed to the expansion process, expansion of Minto beyond what's already approved for housing and commercial. Can we get that done next meeting? You draft something up, does that give you enough?
Yeah.
What would you do?
Sounds like I've got a consensus to just put something together and you all can decide what to do with it.
Okay. Could you draft something to give us kind of something to work with, knowing that we don't want to support the expansion?
I understand.
The expansion.
I'll work with Mark, I have the details, I believe, unless the application changed, but I'll get with Mark, make sure I have current information. And then it'll be put together for you to discuss, and provisions can be made as on the fly with that type of resolution. If there's findings that you agree with, disagree with, we'll just put it together so that we'll put on for discussion and possible action.
Okay.
Proposed, you know.
All right,
Thank you everybody for coming.
Yeah, thanks, everybody, for coming. Talk about it next time.
Yeah, and the only comments I've got, I would love to keep Okeechobee 2 lane. I would love to, I think, take over ownership. I don't know what that would cost our town. My concern is, unless we did something to really control the people driving onto our road, if we stayed 2 lane with the development that's going to the west of us, I am afraid that without something, there will be a steady stream of traffic coming through Los Angeles roads. It would just be really, really hard to get out of any of our roads.
Couple roundabouts and the light noise sticks out.
And that might be, and that might be a way to do it. The other side of it is, I think it's part of Palm Beach County's grand plan. And I know the fight that it took Bill and some of us to get E-Road thoroughfare that didn't even exist off a thoroughfare map. And that took years and years and promises by commissioners. And at the end, they gave it up so grudgingly, and they said, but we might need it someday. And they've already got Okeechobee, and they've got the right of way there. And I mean, I would love to think that they would work with us. I think Keith said it right. They're really good at double talk to get out of anything. And I think there's already some deals that have been made, I'm afraid. So anyway,
I would guess that people in the community would probably pay to get the control of the road.
that could very well be. Okay, motion to adjourn.
Good night.
Now, on code enforcement, all you need to do is $100,000 will buy you a nice little room. But
Hey, those costs are coming down, Bill.
That's really good.